Zelos is one of the only micro-independent brands that are constantly rethinking their watches, coming out with new watches and using crazy materials for their watch cases and dials. Today we're taking a look at an all-new watch from Zelos called the Artemis. This is an integrated bracelet style watch using a material that I've never seen used in watches before. It also gets an incredibly cool movement that they've used in some of their watches prior to this. However, this movement is just so cool. I'm glad that they're using it in this watch, and it brings it to another level. I have one hands-on to show you guys, so let's flip the camera and take a look at the brand new Artemis from Zelos. This is something special. It's not something that you're going to see from other brands, especially at this price point. This has special materials, a really special bezel slash sapphire crystal, which you don't see at this price point again, and it gets a two-part case. That top part is made out of a material that I've never seen used in watches before. It's called Lume, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's sourced actually from the United States, from Vegas Forge, and it is a combination of bronze and nickel, I think it's bronze and nickel, and it's meant to look like wood. So it's metal that is made to look like wood. It looks like Damascus bronze, maybe, is the other thing I would say it would look like, but it also does look like wood grain. And this is made out of titanium. So like I was saying, this is a two-part case. The part that's on the bottom, I guess that's the main case, that's made out of titanium. The crown is made out of titanium, and it has a, I assume, DLC coating on it. And then you have that makome on the top, and it sort of sits on top of the case like a shroud. And then you have a darkened clasp, which I believe is made out of titanium, because this is made out of two materials, titanium and that wood grain makome. And then one other really important design aspect of this watch is the sapphire crystal. The sapphire crystal here acts as the sapphire crystal, but it also acts as the bezel. So you do get a bezel look, but there is no bezel on this watch. Essentially, it is a thick sapphire crystal that is screwed directly into the case, and it has a darkened area that is on the circumference of that. It's not the dial, it's really just the case, and that is darkened. It looks like a bezel, and those screws go into part of the case. There is a chapter ring. That's where the indices are applied, and those are filled with lume. And then, of course, you have the Marvin 700. This is a movement that Zelos have, and they have basically refurbished all of these movements. They have skeletonized them, they have darkened them, and on this specific model, there isn't a dial, but there's sort of a structure that has gone on top that sort of makes it look different from the Sky Raider, which was the previous model that they used the Marvin 700 in. And I actually have that watch on my wrist so you could see them side by side. You're going to see this looks a little bit different from that watch because of that. Actually, I would say it looks very different because of the case and the sapphire crystal, but even the movement looks different because of that, except for the back. So the case back, the movement does look pretty similar because they haven't really done any structures on the case back, but it is a beautiful looking movement. They put a guilloche pattern on this wheel right here, and it just looks really good. It's skeletonized, so there is one thing about this movement, because you could see that mainspring when you're winding, it acts as a power reserve. You could see how much power is in the watch, so when you see all of the mainspring is spread out, you know that you need to wind your watch, which is a very good thing. This is kind of an integrated bracelet watch as well, because you have bracelet, well, the strap here that actually fits into the case perfectly. You have quick release, but it does form to the case and it follows the same lines as the case, as you can see. And this is an all new case from Zelos. It's called the Artemis. This is a case that we have not seen before, and it is awesome. I really have to ask this question, and I find myself asking this question whenever I'm talking about Zelos. Where else are you going to find a watch that looks like this, that gets these specs? So many different materials and little intricate things that they have done to make it look pretty incredible. I mean, even the hands, they're very bespoke. You have a red tip on the seconds hand. By the way, that is Lume, so you can see that it's working in the dark. This is a small seconds. This is really something special. It's not something that you're going to see from other brands. Other brands can't do this. Or maybe they won't do this because there's a lot of development and money that go into a watch like this. And then you're not always going to make all of that money back as you decide to do crazy things like using a material that you've never used before or adding a sapphire crystal that is obviously hard to make. This takes a lot of R&D, research, development, and I would imagine that cuts into profits. I'm not sure that they make a lot of money on these watches. But with that being said, it's also a very wearable watch. It's around 41 millimeters, but it doesn't wear like a 41 millimeter watch. I would say it wears like a 40 millimeter watch because that bottom portion of the case is so much smaller than the top portion of the case. It actually sits on your wrist really, really well. It's also thin, 10 millimeters thick, because you do get that Swiss-made Marvin 700 inside that is skeletonized. It's also thin, so you're getting a thin watch here. And then the lug-to-lug. The lug-to-lug is probably the biggest number here because it is pretty long if you include the strap, because the strap does mold to the case. So it's around 51 millimeters with the strap. Without the strap, it's around 45 millimeters. As I was mentioning before, the Sky Raider is on my wrist today, and I was wrong. There is a structure that sits on top of this dial. It's just very different from the one that we're looking at today, from the Marvin 700 that we're looking at today. This is the same movement. It just looks different because you have, like I said, a different structure that sits on top. That's not really a dial. It's a skeletonized structure that sits on top of the dial. I'll show you a side-by-side of the two movements as I'm talking here because I think it's important that you see that these are actually pretty different. So if you're into something way more modern, even though this looks modern, I think the Artemis is far more modern looking than even this watch. And I thought this was pretty cool and modern looking. You know, it's the bracelet on this that makes it really modern looking. And I think they're releasing a new version of this in the same material as the watch that we're looking at today. So I believe that is available only on a strap. And I think it's the same price as this watch as well. So if you're interested in this watch and you want that special material, they're actually releasing one of these in that Makume material. And there it is on my 7.5 inch wrist. This is a very comfortable watch. It's very lightweight and extremely modern and good looking in my opinion. It looks very futuristic. That case looks futuristic. The fact that there's a two-part case and then you have that sapphire crystal, when you look at it on its side, the sapphire crystal is very high off of the case. And considering it's only a 10 millimeter thick watch, it wears really close to the wrist, even closer than the Sky Raider, which is, I believe, around 10 millimeters thick, or maybe just under 10 millimeters thick. Incredible looking watch for the price. We'll talk about price during the Lume shot, because this is a Zelos, of course it gets Lume. So let's take a look at that Lume. There you go, there's plenty of Lume on here. It's very liberally applied to all of the indices, the hands, and of course there is the second hand that is applied with Lume on that small second. So I love to see that. Really a cool watch, really something different. If it said any other independent brand name on the dial, this would cost $10,000, but it doesn't. It says Zelos on the dial, so it costs $2,399 for this material. They also made it in a Damascus material. I believe that is steel. That cost, I think, the same price, $23.99. However, they also made it in just titanium, and that is $1,799. That is a bargain because you are getting 100% of what you just saw, except for that shroud, that top case material. Everything else is the same. It is exactly the same as this watch, and it costs much less. It's a good looking watch as well. I think this is the one to go for because it is somewhat special. The Damascus steel is awesome as well. Both of these watches are awesome. I highly recommend Zelos to people because they're just awesome. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I will put a link to this watch down in the description. Definitely check it out. If you're interested in this watch, I would act fast because these are limited. I think these are limited to 100 pieces, which is not a lot when it comes to Zelos, especially a watch like this. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.